All right, folks. You got to love the buttons on the switchboard here. If only y'all could see how this thing works, and sometimes it gives me trouble. So, anyways, we're back. We've got Mellon Thomas Benedict on the line with us, and he is on the show. Welcome to the show, sir.
It's going to be fun.
How are you doing tonight?
Very good, very good.
Okay, so let's get right into this. Tell me about your near-death experience in 1982. I want to hear it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, in a nutshell?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think there is a way to really sum it up too fast, but...
I know, yeah. Well, I died and I lived to tell about it.
Hey, that was quick.
But I was diagnosed in 1981 with terminal brain cancer, inoperable and curable at the time, and given about 6 to 8 months to live. Was not very happy with the situation, of course. And I'm someone who really was not interested in religion, had no real solid spiritual background, so to speak. So all of a sudden, here I have to face eternity. And before I ended up, diagnosed with this, I'd never heard the word hospice till I ended up in one, and I'd never heard the word near death till years after my quote near death experience. But for me, I can tell you what. For me, it was a course that ended my life as a course of a very negative worldview. I'm someone who was raised in the Cold War, and I really did believe, not religiously or otherwise, but scientifically, that humans were going to destroy the planet in my lifetime. I mean, it seemed like it, and all the best minds at the time in those periods had come up with a plan called mutual assured destruction. A great plan to come up with our best minds. But basically, I wasn't even an atheist. I wasn't even that interested. At least an atheist shows some interest in these subjects. So I was thick as a brick and completely clueless when my time came. And I did succumb to my disease, and I did have what they call now a near-death experience. I did find myself out of my body, looking at my body, very confused. And then, with not knowing what to expect at all, I finally, and if people want to find the details, and go to my website for a lot more details, but I found myself in front of the light that everybody talks about. And I'm telling you, that was quite an experience, because I'm standing in front of this emanating source, this light, and I'm thinking, I guess I did what all non-believers and what all atheists say immediately is, "Are you God?" And and I thought, I'm in a lot of trouble. But I can tell you something very interesting. The light that we all go to and we all come from, that light knows you intimately. I mean, it is a fantastic experience. This light knows you. It speaks to you in your own metaphors. It speaks to you in a way that you personally will understand. And that is only filtered by your dogma, and even that, the light can speak to you in whatever dogma you're in. So for me, when I asked the light, "Are you God?" the light answered me back, "Who and what is not God?" And for me, I instantly understood that if I wanted to discuss God with you and describe God to you, I would have to name every single thing in the entire expanding universe, and that would take forever. So the best answer for me was, who and what is not God? It's all God stuff. We're all God stuff, that magic God stuff. And that began a conversation with the light that to me seems like it took a second, but it's taken some 30 years now to tell the whole story. And but there was no rush. The light and I had a great I had a lot of questions, a lot of negative questions too. And one of my very first questions to the light was, well, why would the universe, why would a God even bother creating humanity? Because I died thinking that humanity was a malignant cancer on planet Earth. I really did.
see that. I can agree with that in some regards myself. So change me.
Right, and I tell you what was a seed of my disease, because I saw this in what they now call a life review. I saw that back in the late 60s, I had seen a photograph put out by a well-meaning group, and it was an aerial photograph of the city of Los Angeles, and right next to it was a micro-photograph of a cancer cell, and they looked almost exactly the same. And it was in that moment that I had the thought, nature has gone wrong and created a malignant cancer on planet Earth called humanity. And guess what? Years later, thinking this and believing it, years later I manifested brain cancer. So be careful of your worldviews, because your worldview affects you the most. I don't care how many people you tell your worldview to, it affects you the most. And so when I asked the light, I said, based on my belief that humanity was a cancer on the planet and of no value whatsoever, I asked the light that. I said, well, why even bother to create humanity? I mean, why even bother? Humanity is so dark and doomed and evil. And the transforming event for me was the light turned into, I guess, what you call now a mandala, or one of those, those big circular stained glass windows in a cathedral. But it was alive, and the light breathed me into it, inside this, and I call it the mandala of human souls. And it seemed as if I could see and feel and look into every human soul, into the essence. Our soul is our essence. It's beyond personality. It's beyond intelligence and all that. And I was astounded to see, and I could even see into my own, and I was astounded to see that there was no darkness in the human soul. And in fact, that part of you can never be tainted, can never be lost, can never be disconnected. And that part of you is a saving grace of yourself and the whole planet. That's the saving grace.
Now let me ask you. I want to backtrack a little bit here. You had this near-death experience. What about your cancer? Did it go into spontaneous remission, or what happened there?
Well, I'll preface this by saying this. As far as researchers know, I'm the only near-deather that still goes back to the light every day, or it will. And I've done it with university experiments and that. So I've had a lot of visitations with the light. And I can tell you that I now understand that it at least three different levels. There's sort of a mythical level that we all live in our myths. There's an intellectual level, and then there's a level beyond all that. And I'm at that point now where I really can assimilate and digest the entire experience. And it's taken, 25 plus years to get to that point. And so rephrase your question a little bit.
Well, you died because of a physical condition. You died of a cancer that was eating you. When you went through the near-death experience, I'm assuming that people said, no, this guy's dead. It was his time, and he's out of his pain now. When you came back, was the physical cancer just gone?
Well, here's the interesting part about that is that here's what's interesting about the universe itself is that I got all of my questions answered on the other side, and I had this fantastic experience, and then I was returned to the same body at the same second I left off with the disease, but I was given a second chance to heal myself. And at first, after all I'd learned from the light, and I learned about the quantum physics and mechanics of reincarnation, and all that's more real than people imagine, and I learned all this stuff, when I found myself back in my body, the same body that I left, that I just left, I thought, what a rip after all this. I thought, now understanding the dynamics of reincarnation, I thought I was going to get a new life. But you can't skip grades. I was returned to the very second that I left off, and my healing had to come from my assimilating and my my ability to begin loving my life. And so I didn't want to be tested. I didn't know if it was cured. I wasn't even, and I'm still not a religious person, although I'm very spiritual, but I still wasn't that kind of a religious person. And it was months and months later that people, after I left hospice, that people had talked me into to be tested again. And I really didn't want to know. I mean, I didn't know how much time I had left. I didn't know if I was healed or not. I just knew that I had resolved so many of my issues that had made me ill in the first place. And I actually had a remission of the symptoms. I remember being in the doctor's office and after getting scanned again, and the doctor said, "Oh, this is very interesting," and I just had shivers go up my back, fear. And he said, "There's no trace now of this tumor." And
that's incredible.
Scans. And I said, I just blurted out, "It's a miracle." And he said, "No, we call these spontaneous remissions." And I said, "That's good enough for me." But I completely regenerated from my illness and was given a second chance. And believe me, that was heavy for me, because I believed that before I died I was a self-centered artist and didn't care about the universe or anything, and that I was given a second chance when so many others, greater people, for some reason or not, didn't get second chances. It's not for me to know why, but I was given a second chance, and this time I thought, I've got to do something with this.
So we're doing something with it, because I've got a host of questions for you. Where did we come from? I mean, where did we come from, and what's our purpose here?
Well, I asked those questions, and believe me, in the mind of God had that is a pointless question. There was no beginning and no end, and we're just beginning to understand, maybe even get into those concepts. But I'll tell you this: the big one that I can answer for you is that I asked, like, what's the plan? I want to get with the plan. Whatever the plan is, please tell me the plan. And the light said to me in a very loving way, there is no plan, there never was a plan, because that's an intellectual concept. The universe is given to make of it what you will. There is no judgment. And so if you're waiting for somebody to give you a plan, maybe you're somebody that needs a plan, and that's why religions and things were formed. If you're someone that needs a plan and needs to be part of a group that has a plan, well, there's plenty of those for you. But in the end, none of them have the real answer, do they?
No, definitely
in all of
not.
history, And so there is. If there was a plan, that would be a closed-loop universe. It would be predestination, and it would be completely pointless, and we would know that by now. The good news is there is no plan, and that is the greatest gift you've ever been given. You make the plan. You give meaning to your life. God does not give meaning to your life. You give the meaning, and you even give the meaning to God. And that's really precious to understand.
Where do animals and even the earth fit into this scenario?
Well, that's one of the greatest things I learned in my visitations with the light. Once I got through the dogma and I got all my questions answered about, religions and all that, I was then given the gift to look at, to pull the veil, pull the veil open and see the world as it really is. And that concept is now called Gaia, G-A-I-A. And that is the living earth, the living universe as a complete living system. Humans are so young, we're like children in this system, and we're so young that we look out there and we think we created the universe.
Yeah.
We're very, very young. The greatest gift I was given was to look at everything from the Gaia perspective. When the first astronauts got out in space on the way to the moon and took pictures of the Earth, they didn't see countries, they didn't see colors, they didn't see races, they didn't see religions. They didn't see animals. They didn't see humans. They didn't see trees. They saw a living planet that was alive. And we are a part of that and blessed to be a part of that. And so the entire living system is something so dynamic, and we are part of such a phenomenal, almost unimaginable life form on this planet. We're a part of it. We are not it itself. And we have what I call today, and gosh, from organized religion times going back, we have what I call human chauvinism. We think that we are the center of the universe because, and like I said earlier, it's because we're children. We really do. We think we're the center of the universe, that God only created the universe for us.
Sure.
See what I mean? We're a part of something, and all of it's connected. Every bit of this is connected, and our solar system, I was shown, is our local cosmic body. If you look at our solar system on those beautiful pictures they make, and this is what our local cosmic body looks like. All the planets, the gravities, the energies there involved, focusing we're just a part of an incredible life form that's been traveling through this universe for quite a long time before we even manifested this local cosmic body, of which our physical body is a part of that cosmic body, not to get too esoteric. But, many of the ancients were right and the Native Americans were right. This is a living system that we are a part of, and we are not separate from it. We are connected to it intimately and directly. Of the 10 trillion cells in your human body, over 7 trillion of those cells are microbes. And those microbes go back to the beginning of time, and they're still alive in you. Those microbes can determine how you feel. They give you a sweet tooth. They're an intimate part of our ecology.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you. Really? Apparently a lot of microbes, a lot of cold microbes right now, though.
A lot of good ones.
Yeah. Let me ask you then, how do we view, because you made a distinction here, and I don't want to bash organized religion, but I do think God is a lot more than personalizing him into a single man. I think there's more to it, and we do see we have a string of people throughout history, or we've got a history of people congregating to these organized religions because they need a plan, and then that inevitably, unfortunately, throughout history turns to warfare and such things like that. How do we overcome things, that kind of society? Or how do we overcome things like the BP oil disaster in the Gulf of Mexico? It seems like, I would love to believe everything's going to be great, but I have things like that pop into my mind, or they're still ongoing. We're still in wars, and we still have a mess in the Gulf. How does all that play into this? Well,
things are better now than they've ever been. 95% better than they've ever been in all of history. There are over 600 new religions on planet Earth just since the 20th century. Religion is expanding. What happened was the three major, and I could throw in Buddhism, but the three major religions in the beginning were pure. Then they became fundamentalist, and that means, I'll give you, the Roman Catholic Church made Jesus Christ the corporate logo, and it wasn't about Jesus anymore, was it?
No.
What we have in the major world religions is called state religions, and I tell you, if you want to research something very interesting, research Constantine and his mother Helena, who really made the Roman Catholic Church what it was, and they chose to. He was one of the smartest guys on the planet's ever known in his way. It's not that he was good, perfect, but when you have empires, how do you get the French and the Germans to fight with you? How do you get the French and the Germans and the English all to get on the same page? You have to have state religion. So fundamentalism and organized religion is really about state religions and religions of empire. Buddhism became the first world religion, 500 years before Christ supposedly was even born. and even it has its very fundamentalist parts of it. But religion is an open thing, and of all the gods that's ever been, what makes Jesus better than Zeus? I mean, really, just because we white people say it is? Let's think about this. There have been thousands of gods, and humans are incredible. Think about us, how we treat these gods. We create them, we worship them, we blame them for everything, and then we throw them away and come up with new ones.
Mm-hmm.
We're pretty incredible beings, aren't we? I mean, we toy with God. I've often thought if you believe in God, you need to offer him an apology because you're.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and so the BP oil spill, there will always be challenges in this physical universe. There will always be challenges. The problem is that, and I don't want to let's not get too political, but we pay a lot of tax money for people to look out for us, to look out that BP shouldn't have done this. BP's been bad news for a long time. It's just like Wall Street, the thing that happened. We pay a ton of money in taxes to protect us, and they've never protected us. We pay tons of taxes so we don't have to go kill people, and what do?
Go kill people.
We're not being served correctly by our leaders. We need new generations of leaders, and that's coming. I mean, it's coming. This is just the beginning. That's the good news. This is just the beginning. I do whole workshops on this part alone, that this is just the beginning. This is not the end of anything. This is a beginning of self-correction, and we are made of, physically, mentally, spiritually, we are made of a self-correcting, self-organizing universe. It's in every atom of our body, and it's in every atom of everything. And it's just that we need to become more enlightened, more self-initiated. I mean, as long as you're waiting for Jesus to come, forgive me for saying that, as long as you're waiting for the king to solve all your problems, as long as you're hoping someone like George Bush is going to save you,
oh yeah,
the point,
Sure.
And so when I asked the light about this, the light said, there will always be pain. There will always be broken bones and broken hearts, but the suffering will go away soon. The suffering is, what I talk about suffering, is emotional suffering, ego suffering, all that shallow stuff that makes wars and make us not love people and make us think that we're better than someone else. That kind of suffering. And also, the biggest step humanity will ever make is happening in our lifetime. And it's astounding to understand. For the first time in the history of the entire world, we're talking 4 or 5 billion years, this Earth has been forming. For the first time in this entire evolution, we are technically at a point right now today where we can feed, clothe, comfort, and educate every human on Earth and save the planet too. It's never been possible before. We are there now, becoming empowered.
Yeah, we're touching on a zone of predictions and prophecies and what is happening to our world right now. Because let me give you some background to open this conversation up. We've got 2012 looming on the horizon. We've got you can read across the internet. People are looking for call them signs of things to come, and we've got people across the world standing up to their governments. They're saying we want to change. There's some really what appear to be some odd things going on. Are the prophecies or some of these ancient cultures, are they right? Are we looking at a change of the ages coming up, or what have you been able to glean from this?
Well, that's something I talk about a lot. I've had many visitations with the light, and I've asked about this. And what I was told is that we are coming to the end of prophecy. The prophecies will end in most of our lifetimes. The ancient legitimate prophecies, not the New Age cut and paste, copycat prophecies. All of the ancient prophecies have already been done. I mean, Armageddon happened in 70 A.D. Really, look at that. You're trying to say that's 2,000 years later? No, it doesn't happen that way. All the legitimate ancient prophecies are ending in our lifetime: 2012, 2020, 2040, 2060. All of the ancient legitimate prophecies end because their time is coming, and the world will not end. You see what I'm saying? It's the end of the world prophecies, which is a magnificent place to come to. And by this I mean all of these prophecies deal with the end of the world in some way. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The world is not going to end anytime soon. And by the time the world does end of natural causes, we will have star-seeded and colonized many planets.
Now, there's a lot of prophecies dealing with Earth changes. What is your take on potential Earth changes occurring?
Well, that's a great question, because from the Gaia perspective, what people don't have is a good sense of history, especially in America. Our schools are like 50th or some in the world that happened to our education system. So every time anything happens, the Americans think the sky is falling. But as far as Earth changes, there are always Earth changes. There always have been. There will be to the end of our time on planet Earth. But here's the thing: the last 10,000 years have been a gift. It's been so stable and so predictable that this has been a real gift that we've been given to arise and bring a new consciousness on the planet that will transcend biological limits, transcend time and space. This has been a beautiful time. 3,000 years ago, the Earth changes are always going on. 3,000 years ago, the Earth changes affected India, so everyone had to move out of the Indus Valley into central India. Look at the ancient civilizations that were 5,000 years old. There are always going to be Earth changes. This is not a static world. It's a dynamic world. The changes we're going through right now are so mild compared to what the Earth has already been through. And this has been a real gift to us. We're thousands of years overdue for an ice age in our regular cycle. To have an ice age right now with this kind of population on the planet, and we know now for a fact that once an ice age begins and the snow stops melting, you're going to have ice sheets to Texas in 20 years. Just think if we had an ice age come on right now, it would be the most disastrous thing that could possibly happen. But this may shock people, and we can follow up on it, because I believe in good stewardship of the planet. I believe we need electric cars. I believe in all of that. But did you know that from the first human fire to driving your car to work today, you're holding off the next ice age as part of the Gaia plan? It's part of the Gaia response. And we are holding off an ice age, and we will not have one as long as we will not have another ice age before we can star-seed other planets. It's an incredible thing that's happening in a natural system. This is beyond intelligence.
Now, I want to back up, and I need to clarify. This is somewhat of an interactive radio program. I take questions from the SHTF11.com mini chat, and one of our members, Live and Learn, wants to know more. Do you still have experiences with the light, and can you tell us a little about do you have to go into a meditative state? Are you actually in body, and can you give us some descriptive details possibly on your experiences there?
Sure. First and foremost, I have been going back to the light daily, or more so if I want to, since my near-death experience. I've been tested at universities on this. I can go back to the light, retrieve useful information. For me, in the beginning, the first couple of years after my near-death experience, it was like this light would shine on me, and I would be taken out of my body, and it would scare me because, leaving your body means you might be dying. And the light would come and take me, and I would have these conversations with the light, and then the light would return me. While I was with the light, I could see my body, living, and I could see my body was okay, but I was with the light, and I developed a relationship with the light to this day, where every time I visit the light, I ask the light, is there something I can bring back to help? Something testable, real. And so that turned me into an inventor. That's how it affected my life. I was coming back with all these answers. I've been tested on this. I can bring back useful information, genetic codes, whatever. And I've been doing that ever since. I do it every day. I can do it more than, it's not just once a day. But I can tell you this, you don't have to die to do this. I mean, I was thick as a brick. I did everything the hard way in those days. You do not have to die to do this. You can do it through meditation, self-hypnosis. But what happens with people is, I tell people, going to the light is not, I don't think it can be taught, but it can be learned. There's a difference. And going to the light is more like music than an intellectual activity. It's more like music, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. But how do you know? So many people visit the light, and they don't believe they visited the light. And I say, when you're with the light, ask for something you can test and bring back. That's what I've done. And so people say, well, Mellon, how do I know what you're saying about the other side is all real and everything? I said, well, I've spent my life bringing back testable information that has given me confidence to know that my source is a productive source. It is the source of my life, and it gives me answers to things that are very useful on the planet today. So I suggest whatever you're doing, because how do you believe it unless you can test it? You see what I mean? Unless you're one of these true believers that, you have blinders on, you want to believe anything you're told. Well, there's a lot of those people too. I'm just not one of those. I guess my name Thomas really relates to, Thomas of the Bible was the ultimate skeptic. Remember when Jesus reappeared and all the true believers were all weak-kneed and, in ecstasy, he had to walk up and touch it. Now, a true skeptic, of which I still am today, I'm still a true skeptic today. A true skeptic just wants to know and touch the truth. I'm not interested in phonies. I'm not after phonies. I'm not after to reveal phonies. But a true skeptic is a very high vibration, because there's so many true believers that never test anything, and then they're surprised when their God or their dogma disappoints them.
Now, when you're conversing with the light, are you still are you in like a light body, or are you simply a thought form, a wave form, or what is it? I mean, do you have an emotional connection? Do you have is there a rush of like feelings, of love, possibly?
Oh yeah, it is a rush. Let me tell you, but I embody it. It's not like I go anywhere. I embody it. Now I understand that I embody it, and your consciousness expands. And it is a rush. It feels very good. I think of all the techniques I've ever seen on Earth to help people do this, it would be the kahunas, of Hawaii.
Uh-huh.
The kahunas have these great techniques to get you to your higher self, which is the gate to the light. I would say if you really want to learn something quickly and get to it, study the kahunas, especially Serge King.
Okay.
Vlad Madin is a great man. If you want to learn how to get to your higher self, which is the gate to the light, the kahunas probably have the best way to do that without dying.
Okay. Let me ask you another question. This one's going to come out of left field as well. This one's from Nemesis 2012. He says he's asking on behalf of the resident skeptics. He wants to know when you came back when you came back in 1982, you were dead for 90 minutes. What have doctors had to say to you as far as? I mean, it would seem like most people would have brain damage from that. Have you ever had that explained?
Oh yeah, sure. But I want you to understand this though. Check out a group called IANDS, International Association of Near-Death Studies. Okay. My record of being without vital signs for an hour and a half. I mean, my time of being without vital signs for an hour and a half is no record in the history books of documented cases. People have been dead a lot longer and come back. Now, what's interesting is you have some groups that say, well, it's just the brain dying that creates a near-death experience, and other groups say, no, it's the real thing. I agree with both sides. There is a certain part to that, but here's what's interesting. People that have been without vital signs, not breathing, heart beating for say, over half an hour or longer, that's beyond what we would technically call cortex death of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And these people come back unbrain damaged, usually enhanced abilities, and usually very different personality than when they came with. And these are not walk-ins. I'm saying once you've gotten over the fear of death, your personality changes. Believe me. And I would suggest that people look up IANDS. It's IANDS, International Association of Near-Death Studies. If you go to a conference that IANDS has, imagine going to a conference where most everybody there has died and come back. I by no means hold a record for being without vital signs, and there are plenty of people that have had no vital signs for longer than that and have not had near-death experiences, by the way, also. So just because you die doesn't mean you can have a near-death experience. But there have been plenty of people, in the water, bottom of a lake for 45 minutes, tons and tons. One of the most documented cases is a man, George Rodnaya, who was dead in a morgue for 3 days before they pulled him out to do an autopsy, and that's when he popped back in his body.
That's incredible.
There were several doctors said this man is dead. He had a tag on his toe. He was in the ice box. So it's a fascinating thing to look into. It really is quite fast, and the research is quite extensive now. Tens of thousands of cases.
I hope you don't mind. Our show it's interactive and it's impromptu, so sure. it goes back and forth. So I want to back up a little bit. If you were looking into, you said you saw the souls of everybody.
It seemed that way, yeah.
Okay, well, let me see. What about the concept of, I don't know, your soulmate? I mean, is that a real concept from what you've found out? Is a soulmate?
Here's what the light told me about that, or what I understand, and I believe to be true, and that is, there's only one of us on this planet. We're all part of the same life form from the same source physically on this planet. We only have one higher self for the whole planet, basically. That's basically that light we all go to and come from. But when it comes to soulmates, your ultimate soulmate is yourself, your male-female nature. And we've been taught by religions not to even dare touch that one. So if you're looking for your soulmate outside of yourself, you'll probably never find them. But here's what's interesting. Outside of yourself, and what I'm saying about you being your own soulmate, you should have a love affair with your life, yourself. How many people do? They're looking for it elsewhere, and they're constantly disappointed. They only get pleasure for a few moments, maybe in that realm, because they can't be your soulmate in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's interesting about outside of that is we have life mates and playmates. Playmates are people we love and leave, people that come in our lives and go. Life mates are people we decide to do the long walk with. We decide to marry them or have children with them. These are people. These are life mates. So the whole soulmate thing is really kind of out of skew. You are your own soulmate, and when you've got to get that part of you happy and right. And when you do that, you will find your life mate, and you will find many, many playmates in life. Now, playmates and life mates come in two forms, positive and negative. Don't think it's all, how many times you fall in love with someone and think this is my soulmate, and it turns out to be hell.
Yeah, psycho, yeah.
So so when you're highly, I could go on and on about soulmates, but let's move on.
Well, no, actually, this is on par. This one comes from Live and Learn as well. She's wanting to know, there's a lot of theories out there, a lot of, let's call them theories, that the male and female nature or aspect of ourselves has been separated. How easy is it for a person to connect with themselves? I mean, do you believe in that concept of separation there?
It doesn't actually exist in reality, and the facts are, I mean, just let's just stick to biology for a minute. All the latest research on human bodies show that you can be in a female body and have a mostly male system. You can be in a male body and have a mostly female system. And that can all be tested. They can tell you now what percentage of you is male and female. No one is just male and no one is just female.
Okay, that answers that question, absolutely. So we got out of order there, and I'm going to go back to the order of my questions here.
Okay.
Now, you've mentioned some dates. You've mentioned we've talked about 2012, you've talked about 2040, and I believe 2050. Does the light, did you specifically ask the light, what is the future of mankind, or how did you come across the information?
Well, I spend a lot of time, and I actually test everything the light tells me. It's part of my relationship with the light. I actually test what the light tells me. So I've become a full-time researcher, which I love. I love doing full-time research, and the light gives me ideas and inspirations, and I have to go do the work. The light isn't going to do that for you. We've had many different epochs and paradigm shifts, and we're coming up to one now. I believe, from everything I've studied and everything I've asked the light, that the 2012 date is basically a cut-and-paste date, but we have all decided to use it for some reason, and that's okay. We've all decided to use 2012 as kind of a shifting point or a focus point. What really happens, and it really already started happening, this shift that we're in, this paradigm shift that we're in, really started happening around 1807. And it will continue till around 2060. And it changes everything on the planet. What happens between 1807 and 2060 has changed the planet forever. And believe me, I got to see the future. And when I say I got to see the future, I got to see the mass potential, because there is no date in the future. That's why every prophet that's picked a date has been proven wrong endlessly, for thousands of years. You know what I mean? If a prophet picked a date for the end of the world, I would bet the farm on it. I'd go to Vegas and bet on it, but it isn't going to happen. But what is going to happen in this next paradigm shift is stunning, amazing, and sobering, very empowering. What's really about to happen?
And I want to hear it.
Well, let's see. I'm going to get back to that one little statement I said about I got to see the mass potential of the future. I got to see at least 400 years into the mass potential of human future, and because there is only one moment of now, the past, the present, and the future are really just one moment. We're beginning to get conscious enough to see that. I can tell you that the people of the future look back on us now, living now, as the giants of all of history of the earth. Isn't that astounding? We think we're screwing up. We think we're 95% broken. We're not. We're 95% right. The people of the future love us, and they can't even imagine the struggle that it took to get mankind free, and we did it. Between 1807 and 2060, all systems are up and running to free mankind forever, free you of labor, free you of economics. It's an incredible period in that we did it, and it looks like we bungled, it looks like we made a mess, and we made a lot of spills, but the mass potential of what we have done is to set all systems up to free mankind forever, and we are considered the giants of history.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Now, what is it exactly that, I've got one question on the chat room that I'm looking at right now. What is man's future? Do we lose our physical being and become light beings, or what exactly?
Well, see, that's kind of a silly question. Are we light beings? And see, what happens is too many spiritual people in all religions and walks tend to go supernatural before they even check out the natural. You see what I mean? You're missing something altogether here. You can't be any more dense than in the singularity point at the beginning of this yuga, because this has gone on forever. This is the yuga that we're in. We're all one. We always have been one, and the physical body you're in right now is sacred, because no two atoms in your body even come close to touching each other. Did you know that? Check out quantum physics. There's more space between the inside of your atom and the outside of every one of your atoms as from Earth to Jupiter. This is why mystics, if they change their vibration, can walk through walls and things like that. It's totally possible. But imagine that. No two atoms in our body even come close to ever touching, and nothing you ever touch. Only your field touches it. If two atoms touch, you have fusion. We wouldn't be here. That'd be spontaneous combustion. Now, so the human body is already a light body of immense elegance and immense subtlety. What I learned is that spirit without a body is a wasteland, and a body without spirit is a wasteland. Body and spirit together is unlimited. Believe me, I've been telling people this for years. The other side is not all it's cracked up to be.
There's a lot of people that just don't.
It's not all it's cracked up to be.
Wow.
Being here now in your seat that you're sitting in right now is where the whole universe wants to be. Make of it what you will.
Everyone wants to be Sancho. I knew it.
That's right.
So I had to say that. I couldn't resist.
Well, it's true in the most fundamental sense, because every one of us at a point is the center of the universe. Every atom is the center of the universe, and because everywhere you look in the universe, it's level. That means from every point you look at the universe, in the universe you are, and it is the center of the universe, and that's amazing to think about.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. This is from Live and Learn. She's wanting to know more about these people in the future, what they see as great. Is it something that what we've done in the past, or is it something we're going to do in the near future? Or I believe I understood it was more of a culmination from 1807 all the way through 2060.
Oh, it goes. This is a very interesting point. As I said earlier, we've reached certain points that have never happened in our evolution or on this planet before in history. We're there now, technically. Mm-hmm. I was shown on the other side that humanity peaked spiritually 2,500 years ago. And also the oversoul and the Godhead is growing. Nothing is set. It's all expanding and evolving. 2,500 years ago, and this will come around to the whole point in a second. 2,500 years ago, our oversoul expanded to the next level, and suddenly all religions on earth changed. And these thoughts came in. That's when the humanity, for the first time, truly plugged into universal consciousness. And universal consciousness is timeless. It doesn't rust. You can't improve upon it. Give it up. So thoughts like, and this all happened 2,500 years ago. We peaked spiritually. 2,500 years ago, thoughts came into humanity that God is loving. Thoughts came into humanity like, do unto others as you would have them do unto yourself. Can you improve upon that? You can paint it. You can put it in a different building. You can put a different logo on it. You can paint it different colors. You cannot improve on it. And so we have to get past this industrial mentality that we have of new and improved. Always the next guru knows more than the last, and that sort of thing. And so our future is, we have done so much hard work. If you're in a human body right now, no matter if you're a bum in the gutter or Richard Branson on his billionaire island, you are of super importance to everything that's happened. If you're in a human body right now, that means you personally have made your way all the way through the beginning to this moment. You have been everything this planet has ever been and everything the universe has ever been to this moment. And get this is why human DNA is so special. It's the most special DNA here. And we're the only beings that do this, by the way. Every time you are incarnated again and your mother carries you in her belly for 9 months, look on the internet for these pictures. They're all there. The pictures are better than ever. You start out as a single cell and you go through all of evolution of the entire Earth. You're a dinosaur, you're a dolphin, you're this. It's all there. And only human DNA does this. And so every 9 months that you're reincarnated and gestated in your mother's belly because she's preparing you to come back into the world, you are born. And you, in your life, whether it is a great life or a simple unknown life, you then carry everything one step forward.
Wow.
That's a heroic journey, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And it's all important. It's all important. And we, all of us, if you're in a human body, you have done that. You have been on the long walk.
Tell me, I mean, when we die, is there another realm we go to live in, or do we come right back?
Well, first of all, we don't die. That's the most interesting thing of all. I mean, that is an amazing revelation to finally understand. We don't create life. We don't take life. Life is a given. And so when you're making a baby, you're making a body for life to come into. When you kill somebody, you haven't killed life. You have interrupted their incarnational experience. You've interrupted their family experience, and that is not good. But you have not killed anybody. That doesn't justify anything. But as we you got to keep me focused here. I'm getting kind of spacey.
No, it's interesting. The question.
No, you got to keep me focused. Yeah.
Okay. Keep you focused.
When I start bringing in all this light, I can go anywhere.
Okay. The question is when our physical body says it's done and your heartbeat stops, do we go somewhere else to live, or where do we go after we die? And then do we come back? When do we come back?
Sure. As I learned on the other side, reincarnation is more real than anybody imagines. And forgive me for saying this, but the spiritual explanations of reincarnation are rather flimsy. But the quantum physics and mechanics of reincarnation are solid. You know, everything reincarnates. When stars die, they create new stars. And there are multiple forms, redundant forms of reincarnation. Did you know that when you have a child, you have biologically reincarnated, you know, in that way? Reincarnation, and because we're all the same being, all humans on Earth are the same human. We're the same being, and once you realize that, you know, that's where that do unto others as you have them do unto yourself really becomes important. But all humans are the same being. So when I've had many people say, I've decided not to reincarnate. I don't like the body. I don't like this world. Well, technically speaking, from what I've learned, for you to say that you're not going to reincarnate in the natural cycle with the rest of us is very much like you wake up one day, your foot's talking to you, and your foot says, you know, I'm going to Cleveland. I'll see you later. Very unlikely. No, we're all in this together. We're all part of the same being, and we all need each other. We need the number of people that are on the planet today. We need the number of life forms on the planet today to be where we are. And so here's what's interesting, there are infinite realms of subtle energy and infinite realms of dense energy. There is nothing metaphysical in the entire universe. It's all physical. Infinite realms of subtle energy, infinite realms of dense energy, all self-organizing and self-correcting. You know, birds of a feather flock together. Water seeks its own level. That's a constant in the universe. When a star blows up, it creates all the heavy metals, and gold ions attract gold ions, and iron attracts iron. And it's the same principle, by the way, is exactly why you have dust bunnies under your bed. It's ionic attraction. It's the same way a universe is made. It happens under your bed. So maybe you know, you got to be careful with those dust balls. There could be a little universe there.
Well, let me ask you.
Okay.
When you know, at the moment of conception, you know, you have the moment of conception, you have the gestation period, and then you have birth. If you were taking a shot in the dark, when does a soul come into a body?
Well, soul is, and there's only one soul. So imagine a life form that's expanding like a living lotus, opening, and every petal, you know, is you and me. And a soul is always there. And it depending on what planet or what system or what dogma you're born into, that soul gets a personality or a dogma on it. But basically, that's a given principle of the whole universe. I mean, it's there. And so basically, imagine there's only one human on the planet that keeps expanding. You know, the universe is expanding, consciousness is expanding. You, the grand human being, the one life, is expanding. And look around you at how many of you there are. And the more eyes we have, the more hearts we have, the more brains we have, the more hands we have, the more expanded we become, until we get to a point like we are today where we can actually be free of the old karmas of having to work ourselves to death. I tell people that the future is not about work. That time is coming to an end. It's, for many of us, it's as close as our next 1 or 2 incarnations. It's that close. Don't blink, you'll miss it. It's that close now. The future is not about work, and all the machines that we've created and all the technologies and all the education that we've created is coming to a magnificent point here. Well, we're there technically right now, where the future is not about work. We're not meant to be industrial animals. That was only a small blip on the screen that really set mankind free. The future is non-industrial. So in my workshops, I have exercises where I go, now start thinking about your next life, and start thinking about a life in which you didn't have to work to pay the rent or buy food or travel. What would you do with your life then? Isn't that a new way of thinking? And that's what we're coming to. You're not supposed to work forever. You're not supposed to be caught up in a factory forever. We're going to be free of that. And the machines that we've created and put our spirit into are going to free us. Don't worry about that. New economies are being formed all around us. Sometimes people say, well, I don't get it, Melvin. Who's going to do the highways and who's going to turn on the water? And, I have to tell you that those of us right now that are especially over 40 or 50, we don't have that answer. But you know who does? They're right in front of us. Have you ever noticed, and I think people resonate with this, that our children don't seem to be interested in working anymore?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Our children are bringing in the answers. And by the way, I have to tell people, just remember something when you're looking at your child. More than likely, that child will be your parent in your next life. So treat them that way. You're looking at your next parent.
Well, I've got to ask. My concept of work. My concept of work is like you said. It's about making sure that life flows, so I have food in my refrigerator, and the trash gets taken out, and the toilet will flush. How do you see life changing that those would not?
Well, I'll give you an example. We are products of the Industrial Revolution. This is kind of all we know right now. And our education system is still set up on the very first principles of public education at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. That is to produce producers and consumers. And that's what our basic education system is set up for to this day. That is running out. I have to tell people there will never in history of the world be as many jobs as there was once before. That time is over. It's over. And yes, if you've lost your job and you're struggling, and believe me, I've been almost homeless 3 times since my near-death experience. So I know how fearful it can be. And but what's coming is in the future where you don't have to work for life. Now, there's always going to be people that like to work, and there's always going to be people that don't feel the need to work. That's fine. There's always going to be enough alpha types, believe me. But with the systems we have today and what they're going to become in the near future, your life will be one of which, and that's why I get people to start thinking about this. What would you do with your life if you didn't have to pay rent, if money was not a problem, and what would you do with your life? That's what the future's about. That's what we're coming to. We're like right now, we're like a caterpillar that's eating every leaf on the tree, and we think we're ugly and we think we're a caterpillar, but we don't realize that caterpillar is about to become a butterfly.
What do you think about? Let me ask you on that concept. There are some wild theories roaming around that mankind's full potential is going to manifest soon, and that we literally could have. I'm just going to give it a bad word here as far as summing it all up, but superpowers, telepathy or teletransport or teleportation. What do you think about that kind of stuff?
Well, it's interesting, and we're not anytime soon going to come into our full powers. I mean, that's it's going to take forever. But certainly we have examples, and I've spent many years traveling around the world filming manifestors and people like that. I have a great film collection of these kind of people that can actually manifest. So we know it is technically possible. People can do these things. People can. There are healers I know that can grow new teeth for you, and there's I've worked with great manifestors that can manifest anything you want in your hand in front of you, without trickery. And so we know. For me, I've always looked at this as the new physics that's coming in. If it happens in flesh, whether it's healing or manifestation, there is a higher physics involved here. And I've often said, and believe me, God, I use the word God as a very loose word, but to me, God's magic is physics. The rest is hocus pocus. Go to Vegas. You know, everything, and you know, if everything you have right now today, from this telephone you're talking on to your car, was considered impossible. Flying. Just imagine if you went back 5,000 years to Egypt, you would be a god. So what about superpowers? You see what I'm saying? What more do you want? I mean, what more do you want? I mean, it's like, get over it. You're there.
Yeah, I can hear you there.
It's that industrial mentality where things are always supposed to be bigger, better, newer, shinier, and we're coming to the end of that. We're coming to sustainable. We're coming to universal presence here, a universal awareness of the eternal moment of now.
Well, let me ask you, I've heard some different concepts in the world. I mean, we do. We're in the world right now, and there's starvation the world over, and it's looking possibly like there could be more of it. How do we fix a situation like that? I mean, do we?
Well, you know, that's a myth. You know, and this is something. You know, I do a whole workshops on this kind of thing from the Gaia perspective, and I can prove to you that right now, as we speak, there are less people starving on Earth than ever have. There are more people have access to clean water around the world than ever have in history before, and you know, because of technologies, you know, in the old days when a plague or a drought happened and thousands upon thousands of people died, you may never even hear about it if you were in a different country or a different part of the world. Think about this. Now, when one person is hurt or one child falls down a well in Peru, we know about it at the speed of light.
Good point.
We start acting. This is magnificent. We save animals. We save humans. Strangers give kidneys to people. I mean, this is amazing time that we live in.
Good point. Now, we've got about 12 minutes left. I want to ask you specifically, when you visit the light, you've gotten some, I mean, people will go, I don't know, is he telling, you know, is he on the level talking about the future and people from the future and where we're going? But I want to ask you specifically about the practical applications that you've done in visitations with the light, what the light has sent back. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about what you've been able to bring back that's concrete?
Sure. I have many patents in my name. I've developed many products. I've worked in many think tanks, and this is all from the light. I have worked on all kinds of projects, although my favorite projects are working with light technologies, and I've developed light technologies at all levels, from dentistry to medical to now I have a consumer unit that is unbelievable, that people can find out about. I try to be the practical application of higher consciousness, not the philosophy, because, you know, I've always thought you have a six-pack of beer and two humans, you have philosophers. You know, give us something we can patent and test. And, you know, if you don't mind, if people want to check out a website called Light Health Research, you'll see one of my inventions that's ready for the public now.
All right. Yeah, I went and actually looked at that. It was pretty cool looking little.
Yeah, check it out. And, you know, we come from light. We're all about light. All the food we eat is about light, and we return to the light. It's all about light. And this is one of the main things I learned on the other side about regeneration and healing of the human body.
Let me ask you, I've got a question I was putting off because I didn't really know where to put it. I don't know I don't even understand the answer to the question, but is there can you give us a difference in your opinion? Tell us if there is a difference, or if it is the same thing, then just so be it. But between a soul and spirit, is there a difference between soul and spirit?
Well, here's the interesting, our young minds, and humans are kind of we have the oldest DNA on the planet, but we are the youngest species on the planet. We are truly children, but we have the most ancient DNA. And when it comes to that, rephrase that question a little bit.
Well, let me think how to put this. There are some people that believe that some people have, or let's say we all have souls, but that possibly there's something, spirit, that's something more. That is at least how I understand it.
Yeah, and that need for more is, that's something we've just, that's eternal. The need for the universe wants to expand, so do we. The problem is that humans, especially, split hairs to infinity. You know what I mean? We split hairs to infinity, and it may be the same hair. It can be matter, depending on who you're talking to. It could be somatics, or it could be much more than that. But there is only one life we're living. I call it the great life. There's only one life we're living that involves all of this at every level, and we're there now.
Do you ever do like trivial things with the light? I mean, does it get angry if you ask it trivial things like, "Hey, can I have next week's lottery numbers?" Or
well, that's interesting. If the other side is not interested in anything like that. If they were at all, then every psychic would win the lottery. You see what I'm saying? I see no evidence of that. And if the universe was biased, or the light was biased in any way, then the sun wouldn't shine on bad people. You know what I mean? It's completely unbiased. And, you can go to the light, get inspiration, get ideas, but you have to do the work. You have to bring it back and embody it. And some people just want some kind of magic trick from God or the light, And so if that's why, you don't see psychics on any kind of predictable basis winning the lottery or anything else. And also, for every idea that I've gotten, I had to go out and do the work, manifest it, raise the money, and it's like I love that old saying that what happens after enlightenment? Chop wood, carry water. But the chopping the wood and the carrying the water suddenly isn't work; it's enlightenment, and I think a lot of people are looking for an easy way out. I think a lot of people want God to be a diaper changer for every time they crap in their pants. And
absolutely.
The other side just isn't about that at all. And but healing, inspiration, ideas, it's limitless. But some of it we got to do ourselves.
Does the light ever give you, I mean, you've mentioned that you've asked the light a lot of questions, but does the light ever give you a powerful, you need to do this, whether it's a specific task or contacting a specific person?
Yes, absolutely. I get very specific sometime. Also, it depends on who you are. Now, I love humor and I love art. And so I get a lot of comedy bits. I've written whole comedy bits based on my visitations with the light. I've got a great one where Tony Robbins is now the life coach to Jesus Christ. You got a book, you're going to need a book. You go through I wrote this whole thing where Tony Robbins is life coach for Jesus Christ, and the light is, if you have humor, the universe has humor. If you have no humor, the universe has no humor. You see how it works? But also, I have a lot of fun with the light. I really do. I have so much fun with the light. And the light has, kicked my butt a couple times. I'll tell you, one time where I almost went homeless because people had embezzled money out of the company, and the company went broke, and I was destitute. And I'm sitting on the beach one day, completely broke. I'm about to be evicted from my home. I'm sitting on the beach, going, "Woe's me!" The light gives me all these ideas, and then people screw it up. And you know what my higher self said to me, and the light said to me? They said, Mellon, your ideas are good, your work is good. Do you believe in what you're doing? And I said, yeah. And then the light said, Mellon, you have to believe in it more than God. Think about that. If you don't believe in it, do you expect God to believe in it? So if you really believe in something, you have to believe in it more than God. And that got my butt off the beach and got me back.
Incredible. We're just about out of time. We've got about 3.5 minutes left. We asked the guests if they have any charities they'd like to plug, and I believe you said that you had a charity you wanted to plug.
Yeah, I always support IANS, International Association of Near-Death Studies. If you can support them anyway, go to the conferences or go to the local grassroots groups, which are all around you. That would be fantastic. I think you'll learn a lot.
Do you like conference with them or network with a lot of other near-death experience people, near-deathers? Sure. And they have conferences several times a year. All the local groups, see if there's a local group near you and go hang out with these people. It's really, really, really important stuff, and it's fun. I could listen to people's near-death stories all day, and they're all different because we are all different, and we add that difference. Our being different adds to the whole diamond of this universe that we are. We're all facets of this great diamond. That's incredible. Well, we're out of time. Will you give us your website again and tell us what do you have coming up in the near future?
Well, I'm kind of I don't tour that much. I hope to do more seminars and things like that. My website is www.mellon Thomas.com. mellonthomas.com.
Answer that was eating you. When you went through the near-death experience, I mean, I'm assuming that people said, "No, this guy's dead. It was his time, and he's out of his pain now." When you came back, was the physical cancer just gone?
Well, here's the interesting part about that is that here's what's interesting about the universe itself is that I got all of my questions answered on the other side, and I had this fantastic experience. And then I was returned to the same body at the same second I left off with the disease, but I was given a second chance to heal myself. And at first, after all I'd learned from the light, and I learned about the quantum physics and mechanics of reincarnation, and all that's more real than people imagine, and I learned all this stuff, when I found myself back in my body, the same body that I left, that I just left, I thought, what a rip after all this. I thought, now understanding the dynamics of reincarnation, I thought I was going to get a new life. But you can't skip grades. I was returned to the very second that I left off, and my healing had to come from my assimilating and my ability to begin loving my life. And so I didn't want to be tested. I didn't know if it was cured. I wasn't even, and I'm still not a religious person, although I'm very spiritual, but I still wasn't that kind of a religious person. And it was months and months later that people, after I left hospice, that people had talked me into going to be tested again. And I really didn't want to know. I mean, I didn't know how much time I had left. I didn't know if I was healed or not. I just knew that I had resolved so many of my issues that had made me ill in the first place. And I actually had a remission of the symptoms. I remember being in the doctor's office, a great plan to come up with our best minds. But basically, I wasn't even an atheist. I wasn't even that interested. At least an atheist shows some interest in these subjects. So I was thick as a brick and completely clueless when my time came. And I did succumb to my disease, and I did have what they call now a near-death experience. I did find myself out of my body, looking at my body, very confused. And then with not knowing what to expect at all, I finally, and if people want to find the details, they can go to my website for a lot more details, but I found myself in front of the light that everybody talks about. And I'm telling you, that was quite an experience, because I'm standing in front of this emanating source, this light, and I'm thinking, I guess I did what all non-believers and what all atheists say immediately is, "Are you God?" And and I thought, I'm in a lot of trouble. But I can tell you something very interesting. The light that we all go to and we all come from, that light knows you intimately. I mean, it is a fantastic experience. This light knows you. It speaks to you in your own metaphors. It speaks to you in a way that you personally will understand. And that is only filtered by your dogma, and even that, the light can speak to you in whatever dogma you're in. So for me, when I asked the light, "Are you God?" the light answered me back, "Who and what is not God?" And for me, I instantly understood that if I wanted to discuss God with you and describe God to you, I would have to name every single thing in the entire expanding universe, and that would take forever. So the best answer for me was, who and what is not God. It's all God stuff. We're all God stuff, that magic God stuff. And those big circular stained glass windows in a cathedral. But it was alive, and the light breathed me into it, inside this, and I call it the mandala of human souls. And it seemed as if I could see and feel and look into every human soul, into the essence. Our soul is our essence. It's beyond personality, it's beyond intelligence and all that. And I was astounded to see, and I could even see into my own, and I was astounded to see that there was no darkness in the human soul. And in fact, that part of you can never be tainted, can never be lost, can never be disconnected. And that part of you is a saving grace of yourself and the whole planet. That's the saving grace.
Now let me ask you, I want to backtrack a little bit here. You had this near-death experience. What about your cancer? Did it go into spontaneous remission, or what happened there?
Well, I'll preface this by saying this. As far as researchers know, I'm the only near-deather that still goes back to the light every day, or it will, and I've done it with university experiments and that. So I've had a lot of visitations with the light. And I can tell you that I now understand that it at least three different levels. There's sort of a mythical level that we all live in our myths. There's an intellectual level, and then there's a level beyond all that. And I'm at that point now where I really can assimilate and digest the entire experience, and it's taken 25 plus years to get to that point. And so rephrase your question a little bit.
Well, you died because of a physical condition. You died of a cancer.
That began a conversation with the light that to me seems like it took a second, but it's taken some 30 years now to tell the whole story. And but there was no rush. The light and I had a great I had a lot of questions, a lot of negative questions too. And one of my very first questions to the light was, well, why would the universe, why would a God even bother creating humanity? Because I died thinking that humanity was a malignant cancer on planet Earth. I really did.
I can see that. I can agree with that in some regards myself. So change me.
Right. And I tell you what was a seed of my disease, because I saw this in what they now call a life review. I saw that back in the late 60s, I had seen a photograph put out by a well-meaning group, and it was an aerial photograph of the city of Los Angeles, and right next to it was a micro-photograph of a cancer cell, and they looked almost exactly the same. And it was in that moment that I had the thought, nature has gone wrong and created a malignant cancer on planet Earth called humanity. And guess what? Years later, thinking this and believing it, years later I manifested brain cancer. So be careful of your worldviews, because your worldview affects you the most. I don't care how many people you tell your worldview to, it affects you the most. And so when I asked the light, I said, based on my belief that humanity was a cancer on the planet and of no value whatsoever, I asked the light that. I said, well, why even bother to create humanity? I mean, why even bother? Humanity is so dark and doomed and evil. And the transforming event for me was the light turned into, I guess, what you call now a mandala, or one of those. All
right, folks. You got to love the buttons on the switchboard here. If only y'all could see how this thing works, and sometimes it gives me trouble. So anyways, we're back. We've got Mellon Thomas Benedict on the line with us, and he is on the show. Welcome to the show, sir.
It's going to be fun.
How are you doing tonight?
Very good, very good.
Okay, so let's get right into this. Tell me about your near-death experience in 1982. I want to hear it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, in a nutshell?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think there is a way to really sum it up too fast, but...
I know, yeah. Well, I died and I lived to tell about it.
Hey, that was quick.
But I was diagnosed in 1981 with terminal brain cancer, inoperable and curable at the time, and given about 6 to 8 months to live. Was not very happy with the situation, of course. And I'm someone who really was not interested in religion, had no real solid spiritual background, so to speak. So all of a sudden here I have to face eternity. And before I ended up diagnosed with this, I'd never heard the word hospice till I ended up in one, and I'd never heard the word near death till years after my quote near death experience. But for me, I can tell you what. For me, it was a course that ended my life. Was a course of a very negative worldview. I'm someone who was raised in the Cold War, and I really did believe, not religiously or otherwise, but scientifically, that humans were going to destroy the planet in my lifetime. I mean, it seemed like it, and all the best minds at the time in those periods had come up with a plan called mutual assured destruction, MAD.